All right, I'm on my way out to dinner, but the cool 49ers development happening now that I think is indicative of a larger trend and something that we should keep an eye out looking forward into free agency. Take a look at what's going on in Cabo this weekend. There's George Kittle. You're going to see Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk. You're going to see a lot of the big 49ers names. This is on Deebo Samuel's Instagram story. On the beach, Christian McCaffrey. There's Trent Williams. Oh my goodness. Even Shanahan is there. And then you go to the other picture. There's Trent Williams and George Kittle. The 49ers are hanging out in Cabo. And, I don't want to make more of this than what it actually is, but this is something that I've tried to capture in my work ever since I started covering the 49ers in 2017 when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch attempted to instill a college-like vibe in the locker room. They wanted guys who got along. Obviously, they didn't want to sacrifice talent in that pursuit. And as you can see in pictures like this one, there's plenty of talent on the field for the 49ers. But they wanted to, if everything else was equal, they wanted to make sure they picked the guys that they thought would get along because they thought that team culture, team camaraderie, that kind of stuff was important. And, one thing that always stood out to me as far as a overarching goal and ethos that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch seem to have is they wanted to make the 49ers locker room feel like a college locker room. They didn't want it to feel like a pro locker room with a bunch of mercenaries. If they could have professional players, they could have this type of talent, but operating within a setting of college camaraderie, they thought they could build a formula for more sustainable success. And when you look to see what's going on at Cabo this weekend, and this happens every year with the 49ers, where the coach himself is hanging out with Trent Williams, one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. He's hanging out with Christian McCaffrey, who might be the most valuable offensive player right now in football outside of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, we saw what Christian McCaffrey did for the 49ers this season. You see the vibe perpetuate itself into the offseason. And we're a week away from the NFL Combine. The Combine is the start of the player acquisition process in the offseason. Obviously, you're not actually picking guys up there, but you are learning about all the rookies and you're getting ready for the draft. Following the NFL Combine, it will be free agency. And free agency is where players, the veterans, have a chance to choose which team they're going to sign with. And when you look at the culture that the 49ers have built, I think it's hard to argue that that is not something that can help them in free agency. I definitely think that it's a potential positive. Again, I don't want to make it more than it is because this is a money-driven league. Ultimately, guys are going to go where the money is probably optimal, but there are cases in which the money is relatively equal where other factors will be taken into consideration in free agency and players can decide on a team based on those factors. And I think the 49ers, through the culture that they've built, through the locker room camaraderie that they've built, and that goes back to 2017 when they made it a vision to bring in the right types of personalities. I think that when all things are equal, they have created an environment that makes players want to go there. I have a couple pieces of evidence for this. Emmanuel Sanders, who's now retired, but works at the NFL Network, was obviously with the 49ers in 2019. He said, I wish I would have discovered San Francisco sooner. I wish I would have spent 3 to 4 years there instead of just the season after he was traded. So maybe when he signed his previous deal, Emmanuel Sanders would have explored the 49ers a little bit more, but that was before they obviously were a really good football team. That might have been before Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. But the point remains the same. Emmanuel Sanders said, wow, these guys have a vibe going. I want to be there. And people, hear that kind of stuff. Emmanuel Sanders is an analyst now on NFL Network. So that kind of word is going to get around. Second piece of evidence is Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey has very openly said that he nudged the potential trade before the trade happened from Carolina to wherever in the direction of the 49ers. He let his agent know that the 49ers were a place that he'd be really interested in playing in because from afar, he saw that culture. And then when he got into the locker room, well, that culture was right in his face. He was able to see, okay, yeah, this is why I wanted to come here. It's like the Pro Bowl, but I feel like I'm in college again. All these star players, but everybody's down to earth. Trent Williams and Nick Bosa meet at Trent Williams' locker after every single game, break down the game. McCaffrey swings by. George Kittle leaves them be, but George Kittle, I mean, him and McCaffrey are next to each other in the 49ers locker room. These guys are all good friends. So look at free agency coming up this offseason, and there might be some big fish. There might be some smaller fish that the 49ers want to sign. The money might be relatively equal for these guys on offers from various teams, including the 49ers. But can the 49ers edge out the competition because their head coach hangs out with everybody in Cabo in the offseason? Not for this particular reason, not because of this particular picture, but this picture right here is, I think, symbolic, is representative of that welcoming college vibe that the 49ers have, something that Emmanuel Sanders has endorsed, something that Christian McCaffrey has endorsed, and he talked about with Carolina's leadership before the trade to the 49ers, and something like somebody who Jimmy Ward took less money from the 49ers than the Raiders. He got offered more by the Raiders after the 2019 season, and he took less from the 49ers because he did want to become part of that culture. And who knows, maybe in Jimmy's case, that will be something that is discussed this offseason, although that's more complicated with the nickelback and cornerback situation. But still, this is something to watch with all free agents, not just the ones that the 49ers are trying to re-sign. And that's why we watch Instagram stories over the offseason. We see all these guys hanging out. It's still wild to see George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Juszczyk all in the same spot on Deebo Samuel's Instagram story. 49ers obviously worlds ahead of where they were last year with the Deebo situation. I mean, this is when the trade request and the potential holdout and all that happened. Well, this series hanging out with everybody in Cabo. Just my 2 cents as the 49ers enjoy their downtime in this offseason. Time for dinner for me. Everybody, take care.